Well, the weekend has come to an end. We do not end things here. So today I pulled off the impossible. So today, of course, we're going to be reviewing TNA Slammiversary. This one features, of course, the countdown and, of course, the main matches, featuring special matches and title matches. But however, a particular title has been announced that is meant for the Knockouts division, which are now breaking barriers, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, it was announced that two Hall of Fames have been named for the upcoming Bound for Glory, which is something you don't want to miss out. And of course, we move on with the NXT Great American Bash. We have the NXT Championship on the line. We have the NXT Women's Championship on the line. Both men's and women's North American title on the line as well. And a very special match too. So it's going to be a blast. And then finally, of course, we have the Forbidden Door, right? So we have the collaboration with not just AEW and New Japan, but also with CMLL and Stardom, which is going to be awesome. We have title matches, special matches, the Owen Hart Tournament finals for both men's and women's, the steel cage match. It's going to be insane, boys and girls. So you don't want to miss out with exactly my thoughts, what I thought about it. And then, of course, as always, we have a very short news updates that give you guys updates what's been happening in the world of wrestling, such as what events and promotions are thrown out, who's booked, what matches are set, including developments that are happening in the world of wrestling as we speak. So, let's get ready with another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up. 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 Get up, get up.
Hey everyone, welcome to Deleted Wrestle Zone. All things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, if you are new to the channel, welcome. This is a channel we do a lot of pro wrestling reviews from various promotions, not only here in the United States, but also in Japan, Mexico, Canada, Europe, the UK, anywhere where pro wrestling is not as big, but it continues to grow. We also, of course, do discussion videos, talk about various topics such as the wrestlers themselves, the promotions, factions, storylines, whatever we want to talk about. We also, of course, do more news updates. If certain information is unable to be on this episode, we can either put it on the next one or on a separate video by itself. We also, of course, do some real-time news updates to keep you guys on alert if something has happened in the world of wrestling that needs to be addressed ASAP. We also, of course, got the Nagi Sayaka Watch and various other cool wrestling content as well. So if you like what you see, please subscribe to us and click on that subscribe button. You'll be getting a lot of daily reviews and other cool wrestling content as well. But if you like this episode, please give us a like on the like button or nice comments in the description down below. Now, enough of the jibber jabbers. Let's get started. So let's begin with TNA Slammiversary. Alright, we start out with TNA Slammiversary with the countdown. Now this is like their pre-show, boys and girls, so do not get it twisted here. It opened up with a three-way match in the Knockouts division. We have Mara Shade versus Indy Hartwell versus Elena Black. Now, of course, there's nothing significant about this match, but however, this is the type of match that would try to elevate the individual as a way to try to make their way straight to the top of the TNA Knockouts World Title, which is possibly what both Elena Black and Indy Hartwell will aim for. Now, of course, we know Elena Black had her fair issues with both Mara Shade and Indy Hartwell, but of course, we did see Mara Shade and Indy Hartwell try to work together because they dislike Elena Black because she feels like she's more deserving to go at the top. But course, the alliance is short-lived, but in the end, of course, it was Elena Black with the blackout onto Marsha Date, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. Now, of course, Elena Black may have walked away with the victory, but however, a TNA Hall of Famer and Knockouts wrestler, the very first one, Tracy Brooks, just gave a huge announcement, and both Mara Shade and Indy Hartwell were there to witness the announcement that no one expected. Now, I did report it that, of course, about this, and this is what Tracy Brooks decided, saying that there's been the knockout division has broke barriers, wrote their own rules and all that, and now it's been decided there's going to be, of course, a secondary knockouts title, and this one is the TNA knockouts television title, which only can be defended on Impact, so basically not on pay-per-view. And there's going to be a 16 knockouts tournament, so basically 16 women would compete in this one. I think Mara Shade and Indy Hartwell will probably be involved in this one, which is good, and I can't wait to see it. Now, our last match, of course, in the countdown, we have Eric Young versus Ricky Sosa. Now, of course, as you all know, Eric Young has been on a crusade to eradicate the fakers and wannabes, because he considered himself the real deal, while his opponent, a man who was supposed to make an impact earlier, was taken out by, of course, Eric Young. But however, Ricky decided to get a payback, and that's exactly what he got when he applied the Blue Thunder Slam onto him, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, Ricky Sosa walked away with the win. Now, many of you know I put this recently on a separate video, which is the news update alert, with the passing of Joe Dorian. Now, for those who may not remember, Joe Dorian has been part of TNA before. I did look into his history. Turns out that he did have a partial timing there during the 2000s, but it didn't last long until he made his return back to All Japan. And we did see many of the talent there on the top, while it was in fact Cody Deaner who gave a speech about Dorian and all that, and Dorian got his in memory of his tribute, and I think it's a beautiful moment. Now, we opened up with the X Division Championship in an Ultimate X. Now, for those who are not familiarized with this type of match, even though you are familiarized with the X Division, let me tell you what this is. Ultimate X is a structure where you don't use a ladder. You have to climb up a structure, the frame areas, and try to climb out through using the ropes and pull down the belt. But here's the kicker. You must have both your feet on the mat. That's how you win. Now, we have about 7 competitors. The first one to come out is, of course, the Amazing Red, who, as you all may or may not have been aware of, he was part of the first Ultimate X, and he was a former X Division champion. And then we have Frank Kazarian, a former X Division champion, and has been involved in an X Division title, an Ultimate X match for many years, so that fits perfectly. We have Fabian Eichner, we have Mr. Elegance, Casey Navarro, Leon Slater, and of course the champion Cedric Alexander. Now, of course, I'm sure Cedric Alexander is determined not to lose this belt one way or the other. But, man, it was a total carnage, you know. Mr. Elegance, well, he should have just stopped showboating and just worry about getting the belt if that's what he wanted. But nope, that kind of cost him. But there was a moment where we thought had a winner, because we saw, of course, both Leon Slater and Casey Navarro. One of them was intending to pull down the belt, but somehow the belt fell, and Cedric Alexander caught it. In technical terms, he wins the match, just like that. So basically, he retained the belt by trying to be smarter, which is not good. But however, in the post-match, Frank Kazarian, as you all know, has shared history with the Amazing Red, and of course, apparently, this was the moment where they throw in a bit of his history of TNA, of the Amazing Red. For those who are not familiarized with them, the Amazing Red was one of those innovative high flyers. He was, of course, had this 718, which is the version of 619, of course. And he was a very important figure. And later it was told that he is now taking his rightful place amongst TNA Hall of Fame. So he has now been inducted. This is something that many people know he deserved it. And of course, Mike Santana even showed up and embraced him, showing not only because he looked up to him, but embracing like a bit of the Puerto Rican side of them too. So basically, you can say that. But I loved it. Like I was very happy for him. Now our next match, we have AJ Francis versus Elijah. Now of course, this whole match started because AJ Francis wanted to collab with Elijah, but he said he wouldn't. But of course, somehow AJ Francis was able to pull out the stops on him, saying that he has all the rights, his music, his image, all of it. So basically, he was trying to steal his identity. And this is what this match about. Now, there was a moment where he was trying to do the walk with Elijah thing, where he is walking the rope, but Expression told him that he is violating a cease and desist, but that didn't stop him. But however, he put up a very impressive match. And then, of course, Expression showed up and tried to stop, what's his name? Elijah from going drastic, but Elijah whacked him with the guitar, and just like that, he was out. And then later he applied the Destroyer onto Francis, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, Elijah reclaimed everything that was taken from him. Now, our next match is the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Belt. We have Demon Bunny taking on the Elegance brand, and of course we know that this is gonna be, of course, we have Mr. Elegance, the Chihuahua, and Ash by Elegance on ringside in hopes of trying to, of course, make sure that you don't lose the belts. But however, Chihuahua, well, he got poisoned by the green mist by Rosemary. He should have stayed out of her business, but it was Rosemary who picked up the win onto Heather, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, Demon Bunny are the new TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Champions. So that ends there. Now, Santino Marella and Daria, let's just say, as you know, Daria acts like Santino should just shut up and do what she has. But Santino, well, he has his own. And then, of course, she tells him, "You're the most dumbest person." "Oh, thank you." Daria's like, "That's not a compliment." "I know, but it sounds nice." Because here's what happened, folks. In the countdown, apparently Daria found an opponent for Mustafa Ali, of course, for the international title. But of course, she didn't say who, but Santino said that he found someone. Now, Daria was trying to make sure this match only goes to one-on-one, but somehow it got overruled and went on a three-way, which is the one thing that Daria doesn't understand. But the real question is, who were the opponents? Well, Mustafa had a witness who was one of them. Who were the two opponents? The first one was none other than Rich Swann, obviously former TNA World Champion. But the other one, well, let's just say it's someone from Mustafa's past. We're talking about, of course, U-Nation, who many of you know him as Apollo Crews. Yes, that's right, the same Apollo Crews. There were rumors circulating that TNA are planning to sign him, and it seems now it happened. And of course, it was a pretty good match, I'm not gonna lie. But however, Mustafa Ali decided to eliminate U-Nation, and he had his big brute, dumb brute, of course, Agent Zero, to bury him with the steel steps and keep him there until, of course, he was able to pick up the win on Rich Swann. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. But of course, I'm sure U-Nation would love nothing more to get his hands on Mustafa Ali one way or another. Now, our next match is a no surrender match. Now, this is a very unique match. It's no pinfall, no submission, or countdown. The only way to win if you're second, throw in the towel. And this was a rivalry that began since earlier this year. As you all know, Moose was kicked out of the system thanks to Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers and who else and whoever and everybody else there until JDC announces retirement. But Moose, as you know, has been on a crusade to eliminate the system for what they did. And of course, the real kicker is JDC stands by Moose's side. And of course, if JDC will throw in the towel. But in Eddie Edwards' side, he has Alicia Edwards. So basically, that's the whole thing. And it was a pretty much a painful match. Not to mention Moose's wife and son were watching all this. But of course, where Moose was tied up into the ring ropes by Eddie Edwards. JDC was intending to throw the towel, but Moose told him, no, don't do it. But of course, Moose's wife was intending to do so, but JDC didn't want that. But of course, Eddie Edwards and Alicia were telling her, do the right thing and throw in the towel. But JDC was trying to tell her, don't do this. This is not what Moose wants. But of course, Alicia Edwards slapped Moose's wife. And then, of course, Eddie Edwards intending to hurt his son. But he got low blowed right in the face. Low blowed by Moose's son right in his face. And then, of course, Eddie Edwards, was taken out completely. He went through tables. But, however, Alicia Edwards saw what exactly Moose intended to do. If you guys remember, he used a chain to spear his opponent once before. He was intending to do that with Eddie Edwards, but Alicia got in the way and then throw in the towel. And then, of course, Moose put both Alicia and Eddie through a table. And that's how the match ended. And I thought it was really fun to see. So, it was completely over from there. Now, our next match is the TNA Knockouts World Title. Two former best friend and tag partners, Xia Brookside versus Ling Yingling. As you know, Xia Brookside has shown bitterness, feeling that she's been left behind ever since then. And now she's facing, of course, Ling Yingling. And I thought the match was impressive. I mean, yeah, Ling Yingling did not give up one way or the other. But however, Xia Brookside was being more methodical, targeting the knee of Ling Yingling. And that way it always worked. But however, it took two Dark Side DDTs to take her out, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, brand new TNA Knockouts World Champion. Our next match is the TNA World Tag Team Championship in a ladder match. We have 4 teams. We have the System, of course, Bear Bronson and Brian Myers, the Dumb Hands, Jason Hotch and John Schuyler of the Order of 4, the Righteous, Vincent and Dutch, and then, of course, the Elite, Broken Hardys, Matt and Jeff. And I thought it was a pretty intensified match. And, of course, the Righteous brought in a ladder with the barbed wire and thought that it would help. But it was insane what we saw when both Dutch and Bear Bronson were taken out. But it was the Hardys who walked away with the win, with pulling down the belts, becoming, again, TNA World Tag Team Champions. Now, our main event is the TNA World Championship. We have Nick Meredith versus Mike Santana. As you all know, Nick Meredith called his shot, and that was the whole point. But of course, wherever Nick Meredith was going, Ryan Meredith was going to be there to ensure that his big brother gets the title. But in the end, of course, Mike Santana, his body was giving up on him until a danger zone was applied, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, Nick Meredith, the TNA World Champion. And just like that, it was completely over. But we will see what happens this coming Thursday on TNA. So buckle up on that. So we're done right now with TNA. Let's move on with NXT Great American Bash. Okay, NXT The Great American Bash. Man, we opened up with the NXT Championship. Tony D'Angelo, the face against Naruto. Now, of course, this match could not have happened if, of course, Tony D'Angelo showed up. Remember, Naruto wanted, of course, for Mr. Stone to hand over the title regardless, but Tony D'Angelo was not going to stand there regardless what Naruto thinks. He thinks he may have hurt him completely, and I don't know how to say the word, but anyway, it did not. But of course, Naruto was intending to play by his same old rules back in Japan. And of course, referee had to play out a bit of a discretion from his view. But unfortunately, in the end, Tony D'Angelo survived it by putting him in the dead to rights. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it's over. Now we have the NXT Women's North American title. This is a rematch, of course, between Zarya and Tatum Paxley. Now remember, not too long ago, Tatum Paxley lost to Zarya, but now she is determined to reclaim what she has lost. And that's exactly what she do. But of course, Zarya, as you know, she is dangerous and powerful and strong. But Tatum Paxley is the type of person who refuses to surrender. But man, of course, Zarya did everything humanly possible to break her. But it did not stop her until, of course, finally, the F5 applied not only once, but many times, like maybe 2 or 3 more times. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, she remained as the NXT Women's North American Champion. Now, Kendall Gray and Ren Sinclair, or should we call it Ren QCC, as you know, they have their big streams. Of course, Ren Sinclair is hoping she still remain as the WWE Women's Speed Champion, and as for Kendall, in hopes that she become the next NXT Women's Champion. So that's their big goal, and that's something I'm sure many people are hoping for or wanting to see. Now, Mr. Stone was in his office talking to the Vanity Project, of course. Vanity Project was, of course, not happy with the fact that they're not involved in the Great American Bash, but Mr. Stone had enough, of course. So he made plans for this Tuesday, of course. Jackson Drake will be in action to take on Mason Rourke after what happened last week. But as for his other guys, Brad Baylor and Ricky Smokes, well, they'll put their tag team belts on the line against Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. and his little brother, or should I say, little big brother, Galeno de Mal, which is going to be interesting. Now, our next match, we have Shalahil versus Tristan Angels. Now, of course, Tristan Angels thinks that he is exactly what NXT needs, the perfection, that sort of thing. And he looks at Shalahil as a pathetic buffoon that has no class, nothing. But we all know that Shalahil, he's just being himself. But he's crazy. Not in a bad way, but more in a way where you have no idea what you stepped into. And that's exactly what Tristan Angels should have realized. You stepped into a world where you thought you were smart. You thought your looks was everything. But you should have known that doesn't work with someone like Shalahil. There was, of course, that moment where he went under the ring and Shalahil just choked him out. So basically, he was going all crazy on him until, of course, the Whisper of the Beast was placed on him by Shalahil 2 Angels, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, done. Now, it seems that a new faction is being formed called the Dungeon, led by Natty, being accompanied by Carmen Petrovic, Nikita Lyons, and the newest member, Layla Diggs. Of course, they were talking about Jada Parker, who, as you know, they're calling her She Has Become Soft. So they think that, hopefully she reflects that she's not the person who she claims she is. But of course, Layla Diggs was trying to say, look, can we just give her a break? But of course, the others don't think she deserved it. But we will see what happens as we go. Now, Mr. Stone, as you know, talking to EK Prosper. Now, EK Prosper was not happy for what happened this past Tuesday. Of course, Kiana Carver, as you probably know, well, he's a sore loser after losing to EK Prosper. But Mr. Stone told him, look, you have to wait for that opportunity. It's like, what? I don't need to wait. No, because you don't get it. I'd actually put you in a match for the AAA Latin America Championship against Hijo de Vikingo. So EK Prosper was like, what? Really? So, in a way, Mr. Stone would say, look, I know you want revenge, but this is an opportunity I'm giving you since you pulled off an amazing win. So EK Prosper, okay, I can do that. So basically, he's happy knowing that his one against Kiana Carver was not in vain, that he earned this opportunity. So we'll see what happens until then. Now, our next match is the Women's Speed Championship. Ren Sinclair defends it, of course, against Ariana Grace of the Birthright. And, of course, we have all members, Tweedledee, Tweedledum, Tweedle Bitch, Tweedle Loser, are all right there watching. But, of course, amongst them of those four is Charlie Dempsey. But I'm sure he's probably watching exactly how much Ren Sinclair has owned. And not to mention, he tried to get involved, but, oops, he got knocked out by, of course, by Ren Sinclair. And of course, Ariana Grace tried to pull off her move where she plays dead and then applies the inside cradle. It failed until, of course, Ren Sinclair applied the something like a similar bangarang like from Dalton Castle, and then applied the final wrench, And just like that, Ren Sinclair remained as the Women's Speed Champion. Now, our next match, we have Dion Lennox versus Shaquan Sugars. As you know, Shaquan was kicked out from the Dark State after what happened last time in that tag team title belt. And then he went after the other members of Dark State, Cutler James and Osiris Griffin. But this time is a one-on-one scenario. And then we did see, of course, Griffin and James show up out of nowhere. But they did not get themselves involved because, of course, Dion Lennox was attempting to show that he is still the leader. A man, he did everything humanly possible. But, however, that did not work until, of course, Saquon applied like a reverse frog splash onto him. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. But, however, Dark State decided to beat him up, completely attack him, ambush, and whatever you want to say. And then Lennox applied a baseball bat in the abdomen, and then of course in the back, or tried to show him that no matter what, he has no one by his side, that they're still the dominant force even without him. Now, we did see, of course, an interview with Sarah talking with Tatum Paxley, losing, of course, to Zarya. But, of course, Kelani Jordan decided to rub it in her face because she felt she was being overlooked, because she felt it should have been her going for the NXT Women's title. But Tatum Paxley was not going to take that kindly from someone like her. So, it ends right there. Now, we did see, of course, Kevin Owens along with David DeLuca, and, of course, Blake, talking about the much recent match along with Hank and Tank. But of course, Kiana Carver was not happy with the fact that EK Prosper gets a title match, and he felt that he should have been the one to get the but Hank and Tank told him, look, he earned that right because he defeated you. But Kiana Carver was not listening, and then he took out both Hank and Tank regardless. So that's how things end there with them. Now, our main event is the NXT Women's Championship, Kendall Gray versus Lola Vice. And I thought the match was fantastic. It was pretty amazing. Not to mention, we had Lola's family watching, her mother who survived cancer, of course. I have to say, we may have thought that Lola might have walked out as the victor. But the one thing that almost could have ruined it was Kelani Jordan, who cannot stand the fact that Kendall Gray gets the shot. But thank God for Ren Sinclair, who took care of business and kicked her butt. And man, we saw a double back fist. It was so insane. But in the end, we saw a springboard, shades of gray, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, brand new NXT Women's Champion. So I can't wait to see what these two ladies will do for this coming Tuesday. It's gonna be fun. So I can't wait to see it. So I think we're done with NXT, the Great American Bash. So let's move on with our last and final review, The Forbidden Door. Okay, final review, The Forbidden Door. As you know, this is a collaboration with AEW and New Japan. However, they also will collaborate with CMLL and Stardom. So basically, this is a historic moment, as we always expected every year. Now, we start out with the buy-in matches. The first one we have is Daniel Garcia versus Drilla Maloney of the Unbound. And I think this was a pretty good match. Of course, we know Daniel Garcia as a member of Death Riders. He'll do whatever it takes to win. Not to mention Marina Shafir gets involved in this match. But however, that did not stop Drilla Maloney when he put him away with the Drillicella, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, Maloney picked up the win. Then our next match is, of course, the last qualifier of the TBS title, Survival of the Fittest. We have Micah versus Sky Blue. So as you all know, one more spot was open for that, and this is what it is. And of course, many people might have assumed that Sky Blue was going to win this one. But of course, we know that Sky Blue had tricks up her sleeve to pick up the win. But Micah, as you know, one of the strongest individuals, was able to survive it by applying the Michinoku driver. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, she took the final spot, and she is in the Survival of the Fittest match. Now, our last match involving the buy-in is for the AEW Women's World Tag Team Belts. Olympia and Thunder Rosa, as you know, take on the Divine Dominion. Of course, as you know, the Olympia is a small woman, but do not let the size fool you. She has power and strength. Similarity as, you know, Saya Ida from Stardom, of course. And that is something a qualified thing can help out. But however, Thunder Rosa was the one who ended up taking the wrong side of the Divine Intervention, and Mega Bane picked up the win by pinfall. 1, 2, 3, done. Now, our main card begins with a bit of a three-way match, I believe. We have the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, versus the Unbound Company, consisting of Titan and Shingo Takagi, versus El Sky Team, consistent of our current and new ROH World Tag Team Champions, Mystico and Mascara Dorada. And of course, when it comes to three ways, it's chaotic, and there was going to be a lot of spots in this one. I mean, it was insane. But however, Titan was the one who ended up on the wrong side of the Meltzer driver, picked up pinfall by both Matt and Nick, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, done. Our next match was a dream match that many people have been asking for who knows how long, and now it happens. We have one of the best technical wrestlers in the world, Zack Sabre Jr. versus the best bout machine, the cleaner, however you remember him, Kenny Omega. So basically, as you probably can guess, of course, we all know Zack Sabre Jr. has a lot of submission techniques that he could use to put away Kenny, and Kenny, of course, is determined to win this match in order to get himself back on the top of the food chain for another shot of the AEW World Championship. And that's something that has been motivated him. And of course, Zack Sabre became like a somewhat of a stepping stone for that. But however, he has to defeat him. But it took a while until he applied the one-winged angel. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. Our next match is for the AEW Continental Championship. Bandito, as you know, and faces off against Jon Moxley. Now, don't forget, Bandito and Brody King defeated Jon Moxley and Wheeler Yuta, I think, or was it Daniel Garcia, in that tag match that took place recently. And of course, Jon Moxley, let's just say, he thinks that this match was a fluke, but Bandito was not going to take that. But man, we know Bandito does have ways to put someone in submission, because he has learned that too. He doesn't does just do high flying. But however, it ended with, of course, a chokehold by Jon Moxley, and just like that, it was over. Now our next match is the IWGP Global Championship. Pac issued a challenge against Shota Umino. Now, of course, it's no secret that Shota Umino, for those who do follow pro wrestling in general, you all know that Shota Umino was a protege of Jon Moxley. And of course, Shota Umino did not like the attitude that converted Jon Moxley to form the Death Riders, of course, after that whole thing. But of course, he had to learn the hard way from learning from Jon Moxley and all that. But Pac, as you know, issued a challenge, and of course, Shota Umino was not going to back down. And of course, he was trying to brutalize him in every way possible, but Shota Umino applied the Death Rider onto him, or Paradigm Shift, and then of course finally the second chapter, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, he retained the belt. And then Jon Moxley showed up to get in his face, until of course Go Ace showed up. Of course, the ace of New Japan Pro Wrestling, for now retired, and of course the president of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Hiroshi Tanahashi, showed up. So he stood by Shota Umino and of course put on the belt onto him, showing he is the champion of the night. Now our next match, we have AEW's Women's World Championship. Tekla defends it against Stardom's very own Starlight Kid. Now, as you all know, Tekla has her fair issues towards Stardom after, of course, she got fired. Now, many of you may be wondering, what was she fired for? Well, she had a blatant behavior disregarding the rules of Stardom, and she was suspended, had to pay fine. She did not like Tado Okada's, rules of this whole thing, because she thinks that Tado Okada should have just minded his own business. But she put her hands on him too many times, and not to mention, she refuses to follow along on the story, where, of course, she had to back away from Tado Okada after losing to Mina Shirakawa. But of course, Tado Okada had enough of her and told her she was fired. But of course, Tekla doesn't see herself thinking, I didn't do anything wrong. Yes, you did, Tekla. But however, she decided to disrespect Toru Okada many times over until Starlight Kid had enough and decided, you know what, I'm sick and tired of you, Tekla, disrespecting Stardom. Because as you all know, Tekla is a homegrown girl. She actually grew up part of Stardom. She was, of course, trained under them. And that was the main reason she is willing to fight for Stardom. But of course, she had to face someone who was far more dangerous. And of course, Starlight Kid was not going to back down from anything. But Tekla, of course, far more dangerous she is, took her out with the stomp, not once, but twice. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. And of course, history repeated itself. Tekla decided to disrespect her by removing her mask, similar to what Julia did to her back in 2021, of course, or 2020, one of the two. But later, of course, once again, Tekla disrespected Toru Okada. Now, I'm sure Toru Okada will love nothing more than see Tekla fall to her grace after what she did to her. But we'll see what happens. Now, our next match, we have the AEW World Tag Team titles. The Dogs, Clark Connors and David Finlay, taking on Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. Now, as you know, the Dogs aim for these tag belts, since they were crowned. However, it was a bloody match, of course. Of course, the Dogs were going to find a way to cheat, even when the referee was out. But however, David Finlay's past has finally came back to kick them in the ass. If you guys don't know what happened, there was a blackout and you saw the Bang Bang Gang, Juice Robinson, Ace Austin, and Colton Gunn. And then you heard that sound. That's right, the Switchblade. As you all know, there's been history between Jay White and David Finlay. Jay White took him out with the Blade Runner, and just like that, giving time for Adam Copeland to apply the spear. 1, 2, 3, they retain the belts. However, many of you probably wondering, what is the history between them? If you guys have not been following New Japan, let me explain it to you very clearly. When Jay White's time with New Japan has ended, of course, the idea was for the Bullet Club to allow him to ride off to the sunset. But however, it did not happen that way. He was attacked by David Finlay from behind. And it seems that Ghetto knew about this, and so did certain members within, of course, the Bullet Club. But it was El Phantasmo who did not agree to it. So I'm sure Jay White would love nothing more to get his hands on the person that attacked him. So this is it. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see who will be, of course, the next challengers for those tag belts. Now let's jump in, of course, with the finals of the Women's Owen Hart Tournament, Maya World versus Mercedes Moné. And I have to say, Maya World is, of course, to me, the ultimate underdog. As you know, many people say she should not have been involved after the loss of her younger brother. But she did this because this is what she felt that her brother would have wanted her to do. And she was going to do it in his memory. And of course, she put up a hell of a fight against someone like Mercedes Moné. And that's exactly what she did. She fought the hardest. I mean, they took each other out one way or the other until Mercedes Moné applied the statement maker. And just like that, of course, Mercedes Moné won. And she is this year's, once again, second year in a row so far, the Owen Hart Cup winner, of course. So that means she may be on her way to All In. However, during an interview with Renee Paquette, she talked to Athena. Athena, as you know, let's just say she thinks that that this is over for Maya World. But Tony Schiavone made a good point. The only reason she's saying that is because she's bitter and jealous that she never didn't go into the finals to face Mercedes Moné. That's the main reason why. Because she wanted to show that she earned the right to obtain the AEW Women's title, to call it the Athena Elite Wrestling. But ain't gonna happen. Now our next match, we have the Steel Cage, of course, featuring MJF and members of the Don Callis family, like Andrade El Idolo, Kyle Fletcher, Kazuchika Okada, Jake Goyle, and of course, we have Kevin Knight. They take on Team Briscoes, consistent, of course, Mark Briscoe and the rest of the conglomeration, Kyle O'Reilly, Orange Cassidy and Roderick Strong, they are joined with Darby Allin and Kazuchika Okada. Of course, Konosuke Takeshita. Now, Takeshita has his fair issues towards Okada and, of course, Fletcher, and that played out pretty well. But as for Darby, let's just say he aims for, of course, against Kevin Knight. And everybody brought a backpack, but we saw, of course, Roderick Strong brought a big bag. We don't know what it is. Everybody brought it. This is what they brought. Of course, there was, of course, the classic NES console, and it was great. I love how, of course, Tony Schiavone says, bring back the 80s and play like Donkey Kong. I thought that was hilarious. And then, of course, we did see some tax being played out thanks to Mark Briscoe. And then, of course, we saw MJF try to clear out the whole thing with the broom, but he got hit in the gonads with it thanks to Orange Cassidy. And then Orange Cassidy brought out something in the bag, and it was a slice of oranges, courtesy of course, Willow Nightingale. And then what's funny is that everybody had a slice of like a break, like a hydration break, of course, which is something, if you're into sports, you know what I'm talking about. However, Kyle Fletcher actually made the biggest mistake by slapping out of the hands, but apparently he got poured with that on his blood. If you guys know, it's made out of citrus. That is not good. And then Takeshita did his greatest moment ever. As you know, Okada's been known to flip people off, but Takeshita decided to go to his bag and pull it out, and boom, I thought it was great. It was so amazing. And then, of course, we saw what was in a hockey bag, and it's fine. Somehow they got their hands on Lio Rush, and Lio decided to become a difference maker in that way. And then, of course, we saw the ring that Max had, and then later they made a reference to the Lord of the Rings. I thought that was hilarious. I thought it was classic. But they put him back in the bag, sadly. But later, of course, we did see Kevin Knight aiming for Darby Allin's bag that was in the wrap in the top of the cage, not realizing it was a booby trap, and he got exploded. Well, not literally. He just got the bag exploded. He fell down on a stack of tables, just laid out just like that, until, of course, Darby Allin pulled off the coffin drop on everybody in the bottom, until leaving Briscoe and MJF alone. But however, Andrade got involved, and he had enough of MJF. He took him out completely. And of course, Jake Goyle was like, what the hell are you doing, man? This is not what we supposed to do. He had enough. He kicked Goyle in the gonads. And of course, Don Callis is throwing a fit over this. But it does not end there, of course. It was Jake Doyle who took the fall by the J Driller by Briscoe. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, Mark Briscoe gets a shot of the AEW World title. But I'm sure I don't know exactly what's going to happen. MJF's not going to be too pleased with this matter. I'm sure Don Callis is trying to reason with Max, saying that he did not anticipate this. But, of course, this is no one's fault but Don Callis. And this is why Don Callis is an idiot. He thinks that he has everything under control. No, it's all about ego that goes on. Now, our main event is the men's finals of the Owen Hart Tournament. We have Will Ospreay versus Strickland. As you know, two guys who fought together against the Death Riders, but now it's like they all went their separate ways in ways that you wouldn't imagine. And they were going back and forth on this. And not to mention Nana getting involved. But when you thought that Will Ospreay, of course, was already at his last stroke to win, the Death Riders were right there to support him. And that's exactly it. He even applied a combination of the buckshot lariat, but it was later called the buckshot hidden blade. I thought that was great right there. Then he applied, of course, the Death Rider onto Strickland, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, he is this year's Owen Hart Tournament, all the way back to, of course, Wembley Stadium, which is something that he always dreamed of. So we'll see what happens until then. So I can't wait to see how this one plays out as well. So that's how things end in Forbidden Door. So we'll see what happens on Wednesday. So for now, let's move on to our last and final thing, news updates. Okay, So this is going to be a bit of a short news updates. No upcoming events, but only developments. We want to give congratulations to Darby Allin, who just got married this weekend. Well, I don't know if it happened before the Forbidden Door, but I'm very happy for him. There was photos of him with DDP, Sting, and Stephen Borden Jr., of course, Sting's son. Then you see his mom body slammed him, and his dad got chopped by both Darby and, of course, Brody King. I thought it was a great match. I heard that MJF was there too, so congratulations, Darby. Now, if you guys saw the recent update about AJ Styles' son, Avery, well, he had this to talk about. I think it was, let me look it up real quick. He put this on the P1 podcast, and this is what he had to say about his son. It was a big day for Avery, my second oldest, and his first match. His debut match, and it got so big, and it went far from being a semi-main event, and the main event of the show. And I don't think they disappointed anyone. Ashton Martin and Avery Styles, it was a main event. Listen, I never been impressed with two young guys. I think Ashton maybe a year and a half in, and then of course Avery's debut match. And there's a lot of things that we do a lot in with this energy. When we have a young energy that we use in it in the wrong way, they used it really, really well. They didn't rush through anything. They took their time on things that they should have. And listen, I'm not going to be perfect, but this is the debut of Avery and Ashton. It had none of the matches to see them do well in the main. Both of them, I was blown away. If you really would love to see the first match, terrible. This guys did really, really well. I'm so impressed with everything they have done, their training and everything. To see them put through the last match, executed well, blown away. He's better than me as far as his debut. For him, he pulled off the springboard off the guardrail, little things like that. The timing beautifully. Yeah, there were some clips of him that he applied moves that we know AJ would do on from his side, and I thought, he emulates his dad, and he can do it. And also, he did the spiral tap or spiral roll, which is a move that's very difficult to do, and his son pulled it off. I mean, yeah, you should go on YouTube and look it up, guys. His son, his name is Avery Jones, so check it out. So I think that's pretty much it. Let's call it a day. Alright, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, well, I haven't decided yet, of course. I'm considering maybe doing MLW and AAA, but I'm going to have to keep this short because certain things about to happen in my neighborhood that's going to make me have no internet for a while, guys, for the night, guys. So that kind of screws up, but we'll see how things roll. But it's either that or just wait until the following day. Who knows? But yes, we'll see how things roll from there. But for now, we'll leave things as it is. Until then, I will see you guys in the next DWZ time, same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. And have a nice day. Bang.